I was in a wheelchair for about 10 or so months, and we were walking down to the shops with my mum, and there was a group of about 14-year-old boys, and they kind of just did these funny gestures, and basically were like, oh, what's wrong with you, or you've got cerebral palsy, and I was like, wow. There was an incident when I was in mental health ward at one point, where an occupational therapist nurse basically told me that I was taking up a bed that was needed by somebody else and that I didn't deserve to be there, which really hurt at the time because I actually had started to accept the help. So, I mean, you get a lot of people like that, but yeah.
There is always the concern, because of a lack of education and understanding of the people that run a business, as to the effects on their staff, on how those people with intellectual disabilities are managed, how they fit in with traditional management hierarchies and structures, how supervisors of the people with those disabilities are going to cope with that disability, the effect that that will have on the amount of work that is produced by that department compared to one with somebody that doesn't have an intellectual disability. So I think that if you're in business, the opportunity comes up to fit somebody in with an intellectual disability, it is a major decision to make. And generally in business, most business people would make an easier decision that is safe, rather than a decision that they've got to make where they might not have the education and information necessary to be able to make a quick and safe decision. So they would generally leave it and go with the safe option rather than what they would consider to be an option that takes them out of their comfort zone.
Some are a bit impatient.
Okay.
I think it will depends one's outlook on things like that, you know. Some people are naturally not very kind to people with disabilities.
Yeah.
They think they're a bit of a hindrance sometimes.
Yeah. But
well, for one thing, when I was young, you never saw people with disabilities walking around anywhere. They were all kept in homes or at home.
okay.
But now you see more people about, which is a great thing. Really, they weren't on show, if you could say, on
Yeah.
show, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
And people didn't understand, never spoke about them, for one
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
They were always kept hidden.
Mm-hmm.
So, which isn't the same today. I've noticed in the community as well
Yeah.
that they've got much better aids for getting about in,
Yeah.
gophers
Yeah.
and dogs for the blind.
Yeah.
Much more things to help them these
Yeah.
days than there were in the past.
I think disability has notoriously been an area where there's not been enough resources in place, and this is because it makes up part of the healthcare system where the most vulnerable portion of society, not always in the limelight of healthcare and resources that are being allocated by the government. So when we're looking for resource cuts, often you see it's either in disability services or in the aged care sector, somewhere where people think it just flies under the radar. So I think they are poorly resourced. I feel that people with disability often are put in a situation where staff feel they know the best for what the client needs. And because there's always the challenge of trying to communicate with people with a disability, you can sometimes see with staff that they go into a mode of repetition and presume they know what the client wants, rather than we need to recognise our own cultural background, the way that we've been brought up and in what sort of areas we've been concerned with. So we will all have formed biases or we all have looked at things in different ways, depending on where we've been brought up and what culture and what access as well we've had with people with disabilities or with people from different countries or nationalities. So we need to recognise that as we're going into the clinical area, or if we're going into the community looking after a group of vulnerable people. Really through reflective practice, then we need to make sure that we can readdress what our judgments are.
I have a relative experiencing a disability, and I see a lot of people taking pity upon him as a result of this disability. When I see someone experiencing a disability, I feel sorry for them because I feel like their disability could be potentially limiting their life on various domains. I find it really inspiring how some people experiencing disabilities don't let their disability define them, and they still make the most of their life and live it to the best of their ability regardless of having a disability.